Our very own Perry Mason, David Whiting, our talkback lawyer from the city law firm of Donaldson Trumbull, who's here to help you with free legal advice, as is his Tuesday habit. 1300 222 774. That's the number, 1300 222 774. And David, good morning to you.
Good morning, John.
Any developments in the courts? I'm struggling to think of any.
Well, I've got three little court stories for you. Remember we spoke to Joseph last week in relation to an intervention order in an aged care facility?
And you had a...
And I said, look, thank you, but I can't help you.
You had a conflict of interest
yes,
because you acted for the other party.
Well, I met Joe the following morning, very nice guy.
Yes.
And
had to say that, didn't you?
The other side was nice too. Does that help? And we even swapped business cards. How's that? So what... well, the two parties agreed to the mucking of an intervention order on an ongoing basis.
Right.
From the point of view of the nursing home, the care, we wanted to make sure that it was a workable set of orders that were made, not an unworkable one.
So you weren't actually opposing the orders?
No, I wasn't in a position to oppose the orders. I just was there in the event that the court was going to make an order. I was concerned to make that the order was made, which was one which wouldn't automatically result in a breach when they both got back there.
Okay.
So the end result was that there was an order made with a separation, minimum separation of 3 metres.
So this is two people in a nursing home?
Two people living in a fairly large nursing home on the same level,
so
and they were having personal disagreements.
And you're the meat and the sandwich, so to speak?
Yes.
Your client, sorry.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So the intervention order was granted. The nursing home wanted to make sure that it was something they could actually administer?
Well, no, we don't accept an obligation to administer, but we're very keen to ensure that it isn't breached the instant it happens.
That it's workable?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And it was.
And it was?
And it was. And the parties have shaken hands, the order stays, and we'll see what happens when it's up for renewal.
So if the protagonists in some way, by being dragged to court, had to address the issues that led to the need for an intervention order in the first place?
So, look, in that sense, John, it was a successful outcome because there's a whole lot of people who are absolutely terrified of going to court.
Yep.
And it
for
was
very good reason.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was the going to court that was in fact the catalyst for the outcome. So it's worked.
Okay.
Now, I have two little stories that, to me, don't sound quite so satisfactory as that one. Mm-hmm. The Commonwealth Bank went to court last week, to VCAT, to get an order for possession under a residential tenancy. Now, the bank was the mortgagee.
So the
there
bank
was a
lends
default.
Bank lends money to someone who's a landlord,
yes,
who's defaulted on their mortgage, so the tenants are getting told you've got to get out so we can flog the property.
That's right.
Okay.
Now, the bank, as banks do, as everybody does, is that you address the notice to vacate to either the occupier or the tenant.
Yep.
In this case, it was addressed to the occupier.
Yep.
Right. Now, there was an incredibly technical response taken to that. That said, there was no valid notice because, first of all, the Act says it needs to be addressed to the tenant. So if I call it to the occupier, who might be a licensee or a visitor or whatever, that's not a valid notice. And the member went so far to say that it needs to be...
The member of VCAT?
The member at VCAT, yes, who was acting in a judicial function, said compliance with the Act requires any notice to vacate to be addressed to and given to the named tenant.
Right.
So
the bank has to find out who is living there by name,
yes,
and address the document in their name to those people and make sure they've got notice of it. They can't just pin something to the door saying to the occupier.
Yes.
Okay.
It creates an incredible administrative difficulty.
Good.
Okay, all right. Well, then you probably said it's a good news story rather than a bad news story.
Well, you're talking about people's housing. The tenant's done nothing wrong. The landlord might have defaulted on the mortgage.
I understand that.
The tenant may even be up to date on the rent. They don't know what the landlord's not paying.
There's a provision that says you've got to give the tenant 28 days' notice.
Fair enough.
And which I think is fair enough.
You're talking about people's housing.
How do I find the name of the tenant?
Well, that's the bank's problem.
Okay. Now,
we're not in a good mood with the banks today, David, in case you haven't noticed.
I'm getting the vibes, John.
Yeah.
Now, the other one is an interesting story. Two young people break into a country house, and there is 2 counts of aggravated burglary and 2 counts of theft. Two young men, and they are disturbed, and the resident of the house is attacked and suffers some fairly significant injuries. The 2 young people are located. One of them pleads guilty to the aggravated burglary and the theft, and then and then gives an undertaking to provide evidence against the other person who he says was the perpetrator, and is dealt with in court. Now, it's now time for the other trial to go ahead, which is not in the Children's Court, which the first one was, because of the seriousness of the assault charge. The matter is dealt with at court before a judge and jury, and he too pleads guilty to the aggravated burglary and the counts of theft, but not to the assault. The prosecution fails in its case on the assault charge. So what we've got is we've got a victim and two people who were present at the time, and they're both, one of them has no charges against him and the other one has been not found guilty by a court. So the end result in that is that no one is suffering the penalty for the assault, but the victim is suffering the consequences.
Yeah, that's not uncommon though.
No, well, it's not, you know.
I mean, there are people are walking from the courts every day with outcomes that they are struggling to understand.
Well, that's when if I was the victim, I would struggle to understand that.
Yeah, you would.
Yeah.
You would, and you'd say, well, hang on, someone did this to me. How come the courts haven't been able to work out who it was?
And it's common ground it was one of the two of them, but it's not that one and it's not that one.
Yeah, and to which I'm sure you've said this many a time, the law is a blunt instrument.
My answer is I only have to explain it, I don't have to justify it.
Yeah, and, you know, there are atrocities carried out every day in our courts and in the legal system, and
there are.
They are not all capable of being rationally explained. There's another one. Yeah. All right. Anything else? Any other homework or anything?
No homework for last week.
All right. Let's get into it. And Bob in Ascot Vales first up. G'day, Bob.
Oh, g'day. I've got a query about my responsibility to pay for a bill I've received for work that was done without my approval. The details are that I was away on holidays in January. Somebody apparently attempted to break into my house. The neighbours called the police, who did all the things they should and were very helpful and courteous. And what they did included calling someone to do a temporary repair on the window. That was done, a very rough thing, just screwed a sheet of iron over the broken window.
Yes.
About 10 minutes work, I think. And when I arrived home to find out about the burglary, I had a bill for $250, which I thought was rather excessive. And because I hadn't paid the bill, because I didn't see it until almost a month after the incident, I got a second bill now for $275 with no explanation as to what it's for, just says it's for a sale. No advice on the bill that it's an increase for presumably a late payment. What are my obligations?
My view, Bob, is that you have an obligation to pay the account. I think there's some statutory authority for that, but I can go and find it and tell you next week.
Which one? The initial one or the second one?
Well, no, I'm saying that Bob's got to pay for the repair work done on the basis that the police were, if anything, an agent of necessity. Because the other option was in fact to do nothing.
The police have authority to incur bills in my name
for that kind of action.
Right? That's okay.
But there's nothing to prevent you taking the matter to VCAT over the amount of the account.
Yeah. Well, it's the amount that concerned me. If it was for $50 or even $100, I'd just pay it.
But these guys tend to come out at 3 a.m, though, Bob.
Yeah.
It's not sort of on notice in 3 days' time.
And they don't get out of bed for $50 or $100.
So, you know, in a sense, a minimum call-out fee, maybe it's 2.5 hours, I don't know. You can go to VCAT and you can dispute the account on the basis that you're the consumer, but you think the amount is unreasonable.
All right.
Okay.
All righty, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Good luck with that. More calls in just a moment, but our roving reporter Rochelle Hunt is at the scene of a police operation in Maribyrnong that she touched on briefly. And Rochelle, is there an update? What's happened?
Oh, good morning, John. Well, I actually just managed to get myself in now to Cumberland Drive. Now, Cumberland Drive itself is actually quite long and it bends around down onto the Maribyrnong. So where police have set up their second barricade is here, just on the tip as it bends around onto the river. So that's keeping us directly sort of away from where the men have barricaded themselves in. I was just chatting to a neighbour who said that the area is very quiet, doesn't normally hear anything. He didn't sort of hear anything this morning. morning and police haven't contacted him in any way. I mean, we're still seeing traffic come out of Cumberland Drive down where the men are. We are expecting police to talk to us soon. They haven't spoken as yet, so little bits and pieces of information is sort of all that we're getting. We were told that at 6 a.m. this morning, police actually arrived to the address in Cumberland Drive to arrest the men on another matter. We're not sure what that matter is, and that's when they barricaded themselves inside. Obviously then the special units were called and they have surrounded the house. So police aren't giving us any more information. Media are everywhere, as you can expect, and any time that someone walks out of their house, they're basically pounced upon, but no one seems to have seen or heard anything. So we'll keep you updated as soon as the police speak to let us know whether or not the men are still inside and what action has been taken, because I can actually see 3 police officers walking up now down from the river. So hopefully we'll have some more specifics for you soon.
Thank you. Rochelle Hunt in Maribyrnong on the scene of that police operation. Dan in South Melbourne. Morning, Dan.
Hi, thank you very much. In 2010, an article appeared in the Herald Sun entitled Family Law in Crises. And there are a number of case studies here. One is where a Melbourne man had been locked up for 3 weeks without bail because he drove down a main street, passing by his estranged wife and daughter, allegedly in breach of an intervention order. Now, his friends say that he did not realise his wife was on the street. Now, this article was by Laurie Knoll. The reason I bring this up is because one of the things that the monster, Darcy Freeman, if I can call him that, said during his interrogation, he said there's a lot of unfriendly women in the courts, in the family court, who don't seem to listen to the men's point of view. So maybe we can do something about domestic violence. As the Domestic Violence Resource Centre was looking for solutions, the solution is, I think, and David Newing might have something to say about this. Incidentally, the article also says that the family law, the law court, is a lawyer's picnic. It doesn't apply to David White, I'm sure. Now, we should do something about the social workers who seem to take the female point of view and seem to be antagonistic towards males. I suggest males should be represented by females, and the females should the male social workers should represent the females. Something like that. It's a terrible situation in the family law. And every time I go in there and hold up this article, Family Law in Crises, the magistrates put their heads down in shame.
All right. Well, look, you raise a lot of points there, Dan.
Dan, it's a very broad brush that you're putting there. My thoughts are slightly different. Interim intervention orders are made on the basis that a concern has been expressed that can't properly be tried, and the thoughts are that from the community that particular behaviour is best restrained while we resolve the issue. Now, it may be that you in fact only bring the claim on that instead of there being an adjournment for a week or two, it'd be an adjournment for a day or two. But I've got to tell you, I think the system works not perfectly, but reasonably well.
Thank you for your call, Dan. Let's keep moving on. Peter in Brunswick. Hello, Peter.
Hello, John. Hi, David. Thank you for your program. Just got a question regarding, it's a conveyancing matter. Wish to put a property that's, we're now recently married, but we've purchased a property and it's in separate names, and the current title is in the 2 names, and we need to put the property in the combined married name. Property's under a mortgage.
Why, Peter?
Well, we're basically married, so...
I understand that.
Congratulations. I hope it was a good day.
It was. Thank you, John.
Yeah.
Okay. How much do you want to spend, Peter?
Well, I really don't want to spend anything, to be honest.
Okay, then don't do it. If you look at your mortgage, the bank will charge you somewhere between $200 and $300 for making the title available, for the transfer to be for the change of name document to be registered.
Right.
You'll pay the Land Titles Office about $120 for the process,
right,
and you'll pay your lawyer to do the paperwork.
So about $1,000 all up?
No, 500.
Yeah, okay.
Now, why? If you want to do it, Peter, people refinance mortgages every few years these days.
Yes.
Prepare the documents as part of the refinancing process,
yes,
and the only extra cost you will incur will be the Land Titles Office registration fee.
But what you're saying to Peter, David, is that there's no legal effect or no legal imperative to to do the housekeeping on the paperwork that he's concerned about.
Yeah, none at all. Peter, think of names as being for the purpose of identification.
Okay.
John's got the name of John Fain so that we can identify him from, instead of hey you.
Okay.
So there's no need from the point of view of your wife's interest in the property. And it seems to me that it's an expensive tidy-up that I would, if you were my client, I would recommend that from a practical point of view not do it. You would only do it if there were other reasons that made somebody feel more comfortable.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
There
Peter.
go. Just saved you $500.
Thanks, John. Thank you, David.
You can take her out for a flash dinner and a weekend away somewhere instead.
Sounds like a plan.
Oh, I'm glad some good came from it. Greg and Craigieburn. Morning, Greg.
Good morning, John. Good morning, David.
Craig.
I would like to say thank you very much, David. About 7 months ago, I rang up and asked for some help about separation. You suggested to me about a financial binding agreement.
Yes.
It cost me approximately $8,000 for my solicitor, but everything has finally been sorted out as of last Friday. All paperwork and all banking details have been completely changed, and I would like to say thank you very much to John and to yourself for all your help.
Well, thank you, Greg. I'm just a little bit dismayed at the cost of $8,000. I'm sorry there was too much argy-bargy or negotiation involved.
Unfortunately, like you would know, when solicitors get involved, they do, well, in my opinion, would like to line their own pockets with little things like photocopies for $3 each and little items like that. But in the end, I found out it is a very good.
My view is, Greg, it's an investment in your future.
Greg, it would have been... How much would it have cost if it had ended up going to court?
If it had gone to court, well, I would have lost my house.
Yeah. So eight grand's a lot, but cheaper than the alternative.
It would have been well over $300,000.
Hey, how much did you spend altogether on photocopying?
What did I spend, or did my solicitor charge me?
What were you charged?
I think I was charged around about $400.
Yeah, I met someone the other day who said at the end of his case, he said to the lawyers, look, forget it, I'll just buy you a photocopier, it'll be cheaper.
Yeah, but
it is one of the great price gouging opportunities in the practice of the law, isn't it?
Yes, that's right.
We rarely charge for photocopying these days. It's
Yeah.
not so that we don't all the time.
Some do.
But we rarely do. And yes, the scale for a photocopy is about $1.80.
Yeah.
It's an awful lot of money.
It can add up. It can add up. Look,
Just like to say thank you once again.
Pleasure, Greg.
Absolute pleasure having some information to give me somewhere to go.
good on you.
Thank you.
Peter in Toorak. Morning, Peter.
Good morning, gentlemen. Husband and wife make their wills and appoint a trustee company as executor,
Yes.
primarily for the reason that they didn't want a situation where the executor may have died before they did.
Yep.
No fees discussed. The wife has passed on, and the husband has now got the business of cleaning up the estate.
So is the
And-
husband the executor on
No,
his own?
no, he's the trustee company's executor.
Yes.
And they've informed him that there's a minimum of 5.3% of the total of the estate that will be charged.
Yep.
Yes.
Is there anything he can do about changing the executor?
In his will, yes.
No, well, yes. In his
will?
he has done that already.
Right. In her will, no, it's too late.
Too late. There's nothing
It's-
at all you can do. You just
No.
wait.
I should tell you that trustee companies are now required to provide information in relation to their charges and as they change them, and the information is always available on the trustee company's website.
Yes, this wasn't passed on when they made the wills many
But
years ago.
yeah, it's a change in the rules.
And it's a pretty steep fee.
Well, lawyers charge for the work as well, Peter.
Yes,
They don't do it for nothing.
but not a percentage. 5.3% is
Well,
fairly steep.
how do executors, lawyers or executors, what do they charge? What rates do they charge at?
It depends
If it's
upon...
not stipulated in the will.
Well, then they can only, if it's not stipulated in the will, then they need either the consent of the beneficiaries or an application to court. But they can't just take it. They either need to go to the beneficiaries and say, I would like to charge commission.
Yep. And typically what do they charge?
Well, I see rates of anywhere between... I act for a charity that gets asked these questions a lot of times, and the rates tend to be somewhere between 1.5 and 3, not 5.
Yeah. Trustee companies, some of them do a great job and some of them are shockers.
Yes.
And is there room to negotiate this?
Well, there's room to negotiate, but there's no room to insist.
No room to insist, and
No.
you can't get rid of them.
Well,
No.
if the wife named that trustee company, that's it. You can't undo it.
Yep.
They've got nothing to lose.
I was afraid that was the case.
Sorry, Peter.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
It's
Enjoy
not
your-
widely known. I mean, public trustees used to be a government thing, but it's privatised now, isn't it?
Well, no, it's
corporatised. Sorry,
It's corporatised, but it's a state government-owned instrumentality.
but
And
they do charge. They charge market rates.
They do, and but their rates are on their website, as are the rates for the other trustee companies. And what you find is, on a small estate, they want the 5.5%, but as the estates get bigger, then the rate declines.
And it bears no relationship to the complexity of the work.
That's
of course.
the problem, John, is that you have no idea at the time you take instructions or you prepare the will what kind of investment strategy these people will follow.
And how complex it might be. I mean, I handled an estate going back a long time, but the file was open for 5 years as we were tracking down bits and pieces and sorting out disputes and the like. Went forever.
I got a cheque for $300 from unclaimed monies last week for an estate for a person who died in 1992.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, Peter.
No, it's all right. Thank
Mark in Corumburra. Hello, Mark.
Good morning, John and David. I've got a tree on my nature strip where the roots are fighting their way into the sewage pipe.
Is the tree growing or dying?
No, the tree's doing very well.
Oh, I must like what's in your sewage pipe.
It looks very healthy, yes. The Shire tell us it's our responsibility to pay to have the roots removed. Apparently it's where our sewage pipe joins on to the main, and according to the plumber, because it's an old main and we've got a more modern pipe that goes onto it,
Yes.
that's where the roots seem to be coming through and restricting the flow. So who's responsible, David, for the removal of the roots?
Mark, on the way that you described it, I think it's yours. And that's, if from a practical point of view, it's your sewer pipe, but you can't connect at your boundary, so you need to go out to the sewer line. Well, in the same way as when you tap into the water main to bring water into your property, you tap it where it is under the road, even though the meter is on your property. So it's your pipe, and you've put a sewer pipe across the council's property, which is the road and the road reserve, and which has a tree in it.
I think the sewage pipe might have been there first, but so every 12 months we have to pay the plumber to come and remove the roots of a tree.
Or you
that's
talk
not
to
ours.
the council about pulling the tree out,
No,
or
we don't.
replacing it with a different tree.
They don't. Yeah, well, it's a paper bark, and they're apparently well known for root intrusion. So, yeah, they don't seem very keen to spend money.
Well, if you don't get what you want from the council, I'd be talking to the Ombudsman or someone like that. I mean, the council wants to rate your property on the basis that it's residential, so that they know that the area in which you live in has lots of houses, and what the improvements and that the things that they do on their properties, that is the road reserve, the nature strip, should take into account what your usage is.
Yeah.
Now, in which case there's a tree, the tree is fine, in fact you'd probably rather have a tree than no tree. It's then just a question of what kind of tree goes there. So I'd have that discussion.
I'd rather not have it there if it's going to cost me money all the time.
Well, I understand, but if you change the kind of tree and you undertake the plumbing work to fix the problem, that problem may not reoccur.
Yes.
Alrighty.
Okay. Yeah. I was always led to believe it's someone else's tree that causes the damage
Yes.
to your property.
That's true, but it's on their property, Mark.
Yes.
It's not as if the way you explained it to me
Yes.
was that it is the tree roots within the nature strip that are causing the problem. It's not the tree roots that have left the nature strip and come into your property.
That'd
All
be
right.
That'd be different, would it?
Well, yes, that would be
Yeah.
different.
Okay. Thank you.
Alrighty, good luck
Thank you,
with that, Mark. We'll see if we can squeeze one more in, David, but Rochelle Hunt in Maribyrnong has the latest for us. There seems to have been some activity at the police operation at the apartment. Rochelle, what's happened?
Well, John, we've just been informed that we'll be given full details at 10:45 morning. Detective Superintendent O'Brien
Michelle, we'll have to get back to you later on. That connection we've got is terrible, but I understand that the siege has been resolved, and we'll get the details from you once we're able to establish a connection that works. Jeff in Murrelbrook. Hello, Jeff.
Good morning, John. Good morning, David. I've got a tree problem also.
Yes.
That's more than that. I have a Telstra pit out the front of my house. It's overflowed since July into my property with water. Telstra put 2 drains into it that
Yes.
now direct it down into the open gutters that we have here.
Yes.
I've been working on this since it started, and I'm just at a loss as where to go now. I've been
Jeff?
through the state ombudsman, and I still can't get him to fix it.
But Jeff, it's not their water.
I understand I've been through Yarra Valley Water
Yes.
because it constantly runs. I've worked out that it's basically used up about 23 megalitres of water.
So is it a broken water pipe? Is it a natural spring that just happens to be coming up through the Telstra
I
pit?
don't know. It's underneath one of the Telstra pits. It's going into one of their main pits.
Right, but it's not Telstra's. I mean, if you think that if you go 2 neighbours up, let's say they had a spring,
Yep.
and the water ran across your neighbour's property into your place,
Yeah.
you can't blame the neighbour for the water flow. So-
All I want is someone to resolve it.
But I don't think, from what you've described, that it's Telstra's problem.
I don't either. I believe it's either the council, it's either Stormwater or Yarra Valley Water.
Yes.
In other words,
But
because
you would get you could tell from the water flow. If it was stormwater, you would have got a lot last weekend, but not a lot the week before.
Yeah,
and if it was Yarra Valley Water's water distribution system, then the flow would be all but constant.
it is constant. I know that, but I can't get Yarra Valley Water or the council to come and.
Okay, Yarra Valley Water, to
Investigate
force the water people to do something and come out, what does Jeff have to do? Do you go, who bashes up water boards when they need bashed up?
Ombudsman, because it's a state-owned corporation.
State government ombudsman.
State government ombudsman. But Jeff,
I'm working with them.
Jeff, why don't you take a sample of the water and see if it's got what's in it? Right, because
I've got a sample of
stormwater.
it.
Beg your pardon?
I have got a sample because I.
No, but if you did a chemical analysis of it,
How do I do that?
Well, I would be ringing someone to ring an industrial chemist,
Okay.
and because if it's got fluoride in it, then it will be from the water system.
Yep.
If it's got no fluoride in it, then it will be stormwater.
Okay.
All right.
You might have to start doing some of their work with them and for them. And we've got another one in Mulgrave, Jeff the plumber, who's called in with some advice for us. Morning to you, Jeff.
Morning, John.
Yes, we need plumbing advice this morning.
Just regarding the sewer blockage that
Yes.
the guy had, if it's blocked past what's called the point of connection, it is the water authority, i.e. South East Water or Yarra Valley. And if it's blocked in his property drain before the point of connection, it's his responsibility.
Even if it's out in the nature strip.
Well, as far as I know, I know people that have taken legal action against people that own trees, like councils and other property owners. But I think it's a pretty big thing to do to just unblock the sewer.
Yeah, but you can be responsible for parts of the sewer if your point of connection is beyond the boundary of your own property.
No, the point of connection is within the boundary.
Oh, okay.
So when they lay the sewer mains, they cut in branches, and your branch, which is owned by the water authority, will come into your property, and they'll leave a point of connection. Then the plumber will hook up your drain.
So your point of connection is always within your boundary?
Yes.
Oh, that's good.
Almost always.
All right.
There is a few variations, but almost 95% of the time.
Thank you, Jeff.
Terrific. Thank you, Jeff.
No worries at all.
Very good of you to take time out. That was 2.5 minutes. Jeff, that was probably, about $500 worth of plumber time?
Oh, something like that, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's generous of you. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you very much, John.
Good on you. See, just if you ask, David, you never know what you get on
You
this
are so
program.
right.
Yeah, no doubt about it whatsoever. Text message here saying our lawyer charges $50 to forward an email. This is Joe from Donvale.
I think he reads it first, though, John. Are you going to give him credit for that?
He or she, careful now. And I'm of the understanding that once a baby girl is registered with Births, Deaths and Marriages, there's no obligation on the girl when she becomes a woman to change her name. True or false, says Jenny. I think that's
True.
That's right, yeah. So clarifying all of that about names from earlier on this morning. As always, thank you, David.
Thank you, John.
Look forward to seeing you again at the same time next week. Our talkback lawyer, David Whiting. And another text saying, David is better than Google. I love that. What do you think of that, David? Oh, he's just gone. 25 to 11, more of your calls. The